Hi everyone, welcome back to another video on my channel. And in today's video we're going to be talking about what I learned from quitting gaming. So this is going to be a video that's more explaining what I learned after I quit gaming more so, not like when I was playing. So let's get right into it. So with quitting gaming, there's like many life lessons honestly that I picked up. It's honestly a bit like subtle when you first quit, but as you realize there's just like so much to quitting gaming and the changes in your life that it creates. So let's get into my first point. So the first thing I learned from quitting gaming was the importance of finding something you truly enjoy or love. That's not an addiction. So with this, it's usually where the gray area is drawn when people try to quit gaming, because they usually say that like their passion is gaming, right? And passion and addiction, they're very different. So you can kind of look at it like this. Like with addiction, it's more so something that like you can't stop doing. So if I told you to stop playing video games, if you couldn't stop, that's probably an addiction and not so much a passion. And also, what I found with my experience with playing video games is that it wasn't really a passion in the sense that I really loved doing it. And it was something that I did, like, enjoyed doing day in and day out. It was more just habitual. It's just something I did, right? And a really good way to kind of get rid of this mindset is to change your identity. And not like create like a fake name or something. That's not what I mean. But like kind of the way that you view gaming, right? And usually people have a strong connection with what they identify as and their identity, like their values, their morals, their beliefs, that kind of stuff, right? And for a lot of people who play video games, they identify themselves as a gamer. So when you tell someone to quit gaming, it's like you're taking away a part of their identity that's just like ingrained in them. Because you would say, oh, I'm a gamer. That's all I do. I play video games. And you just really have to get rid of that. And this is not really easy to do. So it's going to be a bit hard to like explain exactly how to do that. But yeah, it's like really not tying yourself with such an identity like playing video games. It's not that you shouldn't have any identity, but the identity of being a gamer in particular is like pretty harmful, at least in my opinion. And for me, I also found that gaming, it wasn't really truly a passion of mine because, yeah, as I explained before, it was really habitual. And I have found other activities such as baseball. I feel like I could say baseball is like a passion, but it's not quite there yet. But it is like a fun activity, and also just finding other activities that you're really interested in. For example, for me, there's also cubing as well, right? And these activities, they're really good replacements, to be honest. I found baseball especially to be pretty helpful. It's basically like video games, but like in real life. At least that's how I kind of see it. And yeah, that's the main thing. And the second thing I want to talk about, a really important life lesson, is how life can be just as enjoyable or even more enjoyable as gaming, but just in a different way. So let me explain what I mean by this. With video games, it's a lot of instant gratification. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically doing something and instantly receiving a reward for it, right? So you can think of this like with gaming and social media, it's really prevalent. For example, let's just say you're on Instagram, and every time you scroll by an Instagram reel, you're kind of like getting some sort of a dopamine rush, and that's really fun, right, in the moment, but it doesn't really come with many rewards, because usually things that require instant gratification they're pretty shallow, they're easy to get, and in the long run, they don't feel fulfilling, right? But with life, and I guess life outside of gaming, like real life, I guess you could say. I'm not saying that gaming, I mean, technically it's still in your life, but it's more like the virtual world. Things aren't so easy to get. So for example, one of these could just be like studying, like getting good grades in school. And although grades are in itself are a bit superficial, but just like the whole process of changing your study techniques, working hard, creating good work ethic, like that kind of stuff, like developing good time management skills. These are things that are really like more delayed gratification in that sense, because you're not getting the instant reward of getting the good grades. So you really have to put in the work. You got to put in the hours, and maybe like after, I don't know, like a month or two, you're gonna start to see a little bit of results, but they're not instant. But like once you've actually achieved them, you're also coming out with a lot of more tangible gains, right? Getting good grades can lead you to better life outcomes, success in the future, and of course it's not guaranteed, but yeah, compared to gaming, like if you think of it in comparison to gaming, when you're playing video games, they're enjoyable in the moment. But what happens when you turn off your PC or turn off your Xbox? There's nothing left. There's just nothing. Like, you kind of feel like a bit dull, a bit tired. That's at least what the case is for me, because when I finished my Fortnite gaming session, I don't know, let's just say I just played like FNCS, I didn't qualify or I did qualify, but once I stop, I just go to sleep and then it just repeats again, and I don't really get anything from that. And especially now that I've quit gaming, it's really apparent to me, because I just think back and I think of all the time I've wasted. And yeah, that's what's leading me into the next point, which is how addictive gaming really is. This is another main thing I learned, is that gaming is just, especially with the modern games today, like maybe back in the days, like when you played Pac-Man or something, like you're probably not playing that for 16 hours a day. But with video games, it's really gotten to like a next level, because these video game developers, their goal is to keep you hooked because it gives them more money, and that's how businesses function. It's all mostly for profit, right? But sometimes that comes at the expense of others being affected. And that's kind of like just something you have to weigh out, right? And just thinking about it like this, like just the sheer amount of dopamine that gaming gives compared to other activities. If you think about like reading a book or like studying, like it's pretty obvious. Like, okay, if I were to ask you the question, would you rather play video games or study for the math test that you have coming up? Obviously it's play video games, right? That's a no-brainer. Like, that's what I mean, because gaming, it creates a lot of dopamine, or it just produces it, I guess. Like, not the scientific way of saying it, but like, yeah, basically it's releasing dopamine. That's what I tried to say, what I wanted to say. And yeah, like that kind of activity, it's really just, it's way too much, because for my, in my case, like I remember, right? So I actually tried to uninstall Fortnite like a total of at least 3 or 4 times. I realized that my addiction was getting really bad, because whenever I didn't have schoolwork, I was usually like a good student. I'm still in school, by the way, but like back in like the previous years, I was generally a pretty good student. I always did the homework, I would pay attention in class, and I would like keep on top of my assignments. But once I finished that, that's when the gaming started, right? So let's just say I got home at like 3, I did homework from like 3 to 5. From 5 p.m. to 10 p.m, that's my gaming session, maybe longer. I don't think I slept that late. But yeah, that was when I played Fortnite, and that's just really how addictive it is, because like the thing is, with video games, they're just addictive by nature and the way that they're designed. For example, I think I've mentioned this in another video, but Fortnite, the creator of Fortnite, Epic Games, they've hired psychologists, like behavioral psychologists, to add more addictive elements into video games and making them more addictive. And I'm pretty sure they were sued by people. I'm not sure what happened in this lawsuit, but basically, yeah, if you think of it like that, they're basically like using your brain psychology against you, and that's pretty horrifying if you ask me. And yeah, that's just where all the problems begin, right? Because once you become addicted to video games, it's really hard to stop. Like, I'm telling you, like I've tried to quit gaming, and it's honestly like pretty horrifying to even attempt, because it's just something that's a part of you. You've been doing it for so long, for so many hours, every single day, basically for your entire life. And in my case, I was literally gaming my entire life. I started at like 5 or 6 years old. I started playing video games then, and I played them up to like basically like age like 16 or 15. So that's like over 10 years of just endless hours of gaming. And I wasn't that addicted in the beginning. In the beginning, I played like 10 minutes a day or something, but it ramped up, right? Every time it got worse. I started with like just those online games, if you know, like Agario and those, or like there was like some online sports games. And then I transitioned to one of my like favorite games at the time, Tanky Online, and I would play that for a pretty long time. And I played Roblox, Clash of Clans, and then Fortnite. Fortnite was basically like the game that I played the most. I had over 4,000 hours on it. I was an addict, and that was what made playing video games just so horrifying to me, because I couldn't stop, like no matter what I did. And that's the biggest thing I learned, honestly. How, like, just how addictive they are, and especially when you're in this addiction stage, how difficult it is to stop, because you can't. And I've tried to stop, right? The final time I stopped was basically, and yeah, so here's a tip for any of you who are trying to quit video games yourself. The goal is you want to create as much friction as possible between you and the video game, and you should never be relying on willpower or motivation to cause you to stop video games, because you can't overcome like the difficulties just by like trying harder, and that it just doesn't work that way. So what I did in my personal process, I actually, okay, so my first step was I uninstalled Fortnite, then I deleted the Epic Games Launcher, and since that was enough for me at the time, I left it there, right? Because without the Epic Games Launcher, you have to download it from the website, and then you have to install Fortnite, which probably doesn't take that long, but it was enough friction, right, to stop me. And then the next step that I took was that I basically got rid of all the social media related things. This is like a really big one, right? You want to get rid of all the gaming related stuff, like social media, Discord, not deleting Discord, but like like Twitter accounts where you would follow video game influencers, YouTube channels, Discord servers, and like the r/Fortnite competitive Reddit. That was the one for me, right? And yeah, that's just something that you really want to keep in mind. And this leads me into my next point, which is how gaming is really a time sink for most people. Obviously, there's maybe like for like some people, gaming like kind of works for them, I guess. Like if it's not like a huge part of their life, it's not a big deal, right? But for a majority of people, I've actually found a lot of people I've interacted with, they seem to have this like dependence on video games, and it's more prevalent recently, at least I found. And they play a lot of video games, but they don't really see it as an addiction, and I think most of them are addicted to it. And I've just heard a lot of stories like from my friends and like from my classmates, and it's sounding like an addiction to me, but then it's really hard to help them because they don't really understand why video games are so harmful, right? For the previous points I've mentioned, and also how it's basically a time sink. It's another form of instant gratification, and it doesn't have any tangible benefits, and it's also not as enjoyable as you think it is. And that's really the biggest thing, to be honest, because if something that you're doing isn't even fun, why are you doing it, right? And that's kind of an overstatement. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, if you're going to work, it's not fun, you shouldn't do it. Like, there's responsibilities that you have to have, and there's hobbies and interests that your interests should be something that interests you. But in my case for Fortnite, it didn't interest me, but I just did it because it was an addiction, right? And that's what's really problematic. You really have to realize how difficult quitting gaming is and the sacrifices that you're gonna have to make to actually quit. Because, I mean, honestly, I had plenty of withdrawal symptoms when I quit gaming. I always had cravings and urges to play. I had nightmares from quitting gaming, and it was hard to stop just like towards the end. But eventually, I mean, I don't know if it was like, I don't know how I was even able to quit, but I guess one like, I guess fateful day, you could say, I just uninstalled it, and then it took me like over 2 months, because this was the beginning of the summer break, right? That was the most horrifying part. It was literally the beginning of the summer break, and I had absolutely nothing that I was going to do for this summer break. And that's what it was such a challenge. And just even realizing that gaming was a time sink, and I knew that, right? I was pretty it was subconsciously in my head, but I didn't really like take too much action per se, because, okay, so here's the story at the time, right? When I quit gaming, my initial plan was just to quit Fortnite, and I didn't really think of like any other video games at the time, but I mean, I only really played Fortnite. I didn't really play any other games. And yeah, so like, I realized that like, oh, I was playing 16 hours a day, and this has been going on for 2 weeks. I'm like, that's absolutely ridiculous. What am I doing? And like, it just kind of like, I came to like my senses and just realized that there's something wrong here. How am I spending 16 hours a day playing Fortnite? How ridiculous is that? And I kind of like, I got a bit like fed up with myself. Like, what am I doing with my life? What am I gonna do in the future? When I get to university, what am I gonna do then? Am I just gonna keep playing video games and fail all my classes? That's kind of like the mindset I had going into it, right? And yeah, and that's just like the biggest thing, to be honest. Just realizing the amount of time that I spent, 4,000 hours. That's not time I'm getting back no matter what I do. That's 4,000 hours just gone. There's nowhere else where I can get that back. That's in the past. And sometimes it's just important to realize like the mistakes I've made along the way. And that's another thing that I've learned, just to kind of like not regret the past, but also like use that as a learning goal, right? Just use that as a moment like for learning and realizing that you can't change the past. You can only change the present, and you just have to focus on the present. And you shouldn't really be regretful of these kinds of things. And those are the main lessons that I've learned from gaming. If this did help you, consider liking, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell. And I hope you have a great day, and I hope this helped you in some way. Bye.